So going live and broadcasting in. Talk a little bit, Alicia.
Hello.
Good.
I think
Ready.
we'll.
Good enough. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final installment of the Climate Reality Project Canada's Spring Webinar Series. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to the Community Climate Hub Initiative. My name is Alicia Aaron, a research intern focused on communicating the urgency of climate action in order to bring about behavioral change. I'm here at Climate Reality in Montreal, and our hope is that the creation of coordinated hubs throughout the country will help excellent of the spring webinar series, but next week our summer gets started with Yves Hennekens, president of YHC Environment, who specializes in conducting municipal GHG inventories. If we believe that emissions matter, we need to be able to measure those emissions. Let's see. You can see that the other summer webinar events on your screen now if you're joining us via video conference. I invite you to sign up for the upcoming webinar series at climatehub.ca. These webinars are meant to exchange best practices and tools that you can leverage in your own cities to accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy. Again, that's climatehub.ca, and you can see the graphic there now. Today's webinar does exactly that's what we're going to be talking about. We have 3 guest speakers whose experiences with storytelling in the climate movement are considerable. Ben Donato-Woojer and Amanda Harvey Sanchez will kick us off, and then Jason Davis will wrap things up with tools designed to help you get practicing your telling your story today. Their presentations will take approximately 30 minutes total, and then we'll open the floor for questions either in the chat or in the Q&A section. So Ben Donato-Woojer started organizing in 2006 after doing a project on climate change in school and feeling shocked with the magnitude of the problem. He felt betrayed, thinking adults are supposed to know better. And then Ben spent the next 5 years volunteering for groups that organized protests and lobbied politicians. But he saw this strategy was not making changes. His understanding changed in 2014 when he attended the People's Climate March. And in attending a crowd of hundreds of thousands, Ben saw how frontline communities were successfully organizing their communities to force politicians to act. Upon returning, Ben committed to learning organizing and enrolled in Marshall Gantz's class, People, Power, and Change. And then he brought back his knowledge of organizing to train organizers in the queer, climate, and progressive movements in Toronto and Etobicoke. And most importantly, or perhaps not most importantly, he's a bit of a dog person. The other person who will be on this together in the same screen is Amanda Harvey Sanchez, who grew up hearing about climate changes from her parents. She has been involved in environmental initiatives from a young age, but it wasn't until joining her campus fossil fuel divestment campaign in 2014 that she learned to approach climate activism from a social justice perspective. Working on divestment, she has had the opportunity to engage with related social issues, including Indigenous rights, organizations they need to enact progressive change. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Ben and Amanda.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. So we're going to go through the standard slide deck that Olivia Chow actually uses in Toronto when she's doing her organizing training. I think I should start saying that it is normally a full weekend training, and I think Matt is a very cool dude. So when he asked me, I thought I would do my best to compress it into 30 minutes, but it is extremely compressed. So we're going to do as much as we can in the time that we have. So to start that off, I'm just sharing my screen right now. We wanted to talk about the importance of telling stories. So climate change is an extremely fact-heavy subject matter. And it's, as we all know at this point, it's hard to make people care about it and understand its importance. So it's this question of how do we get people to care about it and take action. That's where storytelling comes in, with its very strong ability to make people care and change their priorities. So, Amanda,
Cool.
how does it fit into organizing?
Yeah, so storytelling is a really important part of organizing that sometimes gets left out, but it's actually really crucial to like forming successful campaigns. So on the screen, you can all see this like cartoon, the organizer's journey. And so at the beginning, you have this individual who has an idea, they're motivated about something that they want to change, they see some kind of injustice, but of course, one person alone isn't going to be able to do as much as if you had more people. But how are you going to get from one person alone to a whole group of people? And the missing piece there is your story, which is the part that we're focusing on today. Your story is how you connect with other people and find like a common experience that can unite you in your drive to create whatever change it is that you want to create. So sharing your story is how you move from an individual to a group and forming those relationships. So relationships are the foundation of any kind of organizing group or campaign that you're creating. Once you have that foundation, you can move into strategy, which is a whole other workshop that we're not unfortunately going to have a chance to delve into today, but it starts with that story. And then from strategy, you have your structure, so like how you choose to structure your group, if you're going to have like committees, or how you delegate tasks, and then from that is where you move to take action and accomplish whatever it is that your goal is.
Hey guys,
So,
you need to share your screen. Sorry,
Pardon?
we're not able to see your screen.
It says it's sharing right now.
Okay, try
I'll
stopping
stop
and restarting.
restart it. Sorry about that. It had the screen share button on. So I will attempt to share again. Are you seeing it now?
No.
Okay. So we'll stop it again. Are you seeing it now?
No, unfortunately not. Do you want to try to have me share it from my end?
That would be great, yeah.
Okay. I believe you'll have to send it, unfortunately. I don't think I have it yet. But you can maybe keep talking, and while one of you sends it, the other one can...
Okay, I sent it to you on Facebook this morning. So if you check that, it is there.
okay, so sorry about that, guys. But once you get the slides, you'll see the cartoon that I'm saying. It'll all make a little more sense. But really, the point is that stories are the foundation that allows for everything else that we could do a whole workshop on. But really, today we're focusing on the stories. So moving on to practices of leadership. Leadership falls into kind of two categories. It's building power and using power. Building power is where the story part comes in. So you need the story to then move into forming a structure, building the relationships that I was just talking about. And then once you have that, you can transition into actually using your power. And that's where strategy and action comes into play. So a nice definition that we have of leadership is taking responsibility for enabling others to achieve purpose in the face of uncertainty. Part of what I really like about this definition is the keyword of enabling, so enabling others. So it's not about having one person who is the center of your entire group who's going to do everything. A good leader is someone who enables others to be leaders themselves and take on responsibilities, and that creates a more sustainable structure for change instead of just having like a lone wolf person in the center. What happens if they are no longer there for whatever reason? So Ben.
So public narrative is one way of understanding how we tell stories in social movements. Maybe to contextualize how I understand the issue, as my background is actually in anthropology, and as humans, our brains are wired to understand the world through stories. Even though facts might not be persuasive, they are still arguably stories of cause and effect with actors that describe action and tell us how the world is, how it came to be, and where it's going. All of that said, some stories are more effective at motivating and connecting new volunteers and our own movement members than others. So we tell stories because it's how we understand the world. Stories teach us what choices are right, they have lessons and values, and people relate to them. Why that matters is because when we're dealing with a very broad and complicated subject matter, such as climate change, simple stories about the effects that it's having, people who have chosen to step up and take action are able to motivate people to take action in a way that's much more compelling than reading a graph might be. Now, there is a subset of the population who will be motivated by a graph, to whom an Excel spreadsheet can be the most compelling story that there is. But for most people, it's something similar to an image of a polar bear on ice, or I would hope in the direction that we're moving, stories of frontline communities who are resisting the fossil fuel industry and other extractive industries as part of the struggle to mitigate climate change. Now on that, effective stories have several moving parts. One is a personal connection that conveys the motivation of someone, why you actually came to care on this. So this matters because when we're speaking at events or when we're bringing in new volunteers, having the story of why you came to care about climate change, why out of all the things you could be doing, this is what you want to do, is what touches people's hearts and makes them care. So why this matters to you is that when you are recruiting people, when you have new people showing up at a speaking event or a documentary screening, it's very important to tell the story of why you as that individual actually care. That's what people connect to, and that relationship is what keeps people coming back. I know that despite the enormous magnitude of the climate crisis, we think that it's our cognitive ability to understand that keeps people coming back. But there's just a huge amount of research in the social movement that suggests that's not really the case. It's the relationships we have and how deep those relationships are, and that comes to whether or not we actually understand what makes the other people in the room with us tick. And that's why telling the story of why we care and creating spaces to tell those stories is so important. Strategic analysis is also important, but we're here to focus on storytelling. So stories help us feel the emotions that remind us of our values, of of justice, of fairness, of security and safety. Climate change actually undermines a huge amount of those values. Be it in the sense that we probably have the value that future generations deserve a fair shot, and climate change is interfering in a very huge way with that value. And this matters because what we're trying to do is to activate people who aren't taking action right now. And these are people who might be apathetic, who might have fear, who might feel isolated or have self-doubt, and stories that can convey that sense of urgency, anger at injustice, be it in the power of the fossil fuel industry or politicians who approve pipelines, hope that things can change because we've seen people who are in a similar place to us taking action and having a sense of community. And I think really importantly, stories convey a sense that we can make a difference. So YCMD stands for You Can Make a Difference. And that's a hugely important part of storytelling. So the three parts of an effective story, and this is part of the way that Marshall Gans breaks it up, is self, us, and now. So when we're telling a story, so for example, if you are recruiting a new member to a cause, the story itself is how you came to care about it. So and the other important part of this is that we all have a few stories. I'm just going to check there's nothing on fire in the chat box. Okay, I think the screen is frozen, unfortunately. So we can send you the slides after. We're very happy to do so. The story of self is how you came to care about a specific issue. So in my case, for example, I was doing a Bristol Board project, and as my bio said, was scared by it. I think another important story of self that I use when I'm talking to new volunteers is that I did my undergraduate thesis in Kalimantan, Indonesia. That was, for those who don't know, it's a huge rainforest. I believe it's the fourth biggest, the rainforests of Indonesia are the fourth biggest rainforest in the world, and they're a huge source of deforestation. And I went in going to research the UN RED program, which is has the idea that if you pay people in places around forests to not cut them down, that the financial incentive will stop them from cutting down their forests. But what I actually saw was that the financial incentive wasn't nearly big enough to interfere with the oil palm industry, unfortunately, which is the primary cash crop that's ripping up the forests of South Asia. And that it was actually the indigenous rights and title that the people of Kalimantan had that was the biggest line of defense to the relentless expansion of the oil palm industry. And it actually, I remember one night where I was sitting in the head of the village where I was doing the project's house, and it was like, he said the $30 or so per square mile that we get isn't really going to do anything, but what's actually keeping us safe is that we will be violent to the oil palm industry should they interfere with our land rights. And it was one of those moments that just super strongly impressed on me how it was frontline communities such as Ulak Pau that were leading the resistance to industries that are undermining life as we know it on this planet. And I use that story because people can connect to it, and it shifts. It has actors, it has bad guys, and it conveys a very important value of standing in solidarity with frontline communities and understanding in a more simple way the importance of the work that they're doing. The story of us is when you're creating a sense of community and how you're creating that sense of community. So with this, it is very important to understand who it is that you're organizing. Are you organizing people on your campus, people in your neighborhood, people in your riding, municipal ward, federal riding to take action? Is it people in your profession? What values does that profession share, or what values do people in your university profess to share? And it comes down okay. Are we back?
We can hear you now, yes.
Hello.
Start your video again.
Oh, can you hear it?
Yes.
Yes. I'm not sure where we cut out.
Cut
out?
30 seconds ago.
Okay. Sorry about that. I've never seen Zoom do that. I'm going to share my screen. I'm really not sure why it's not sharing, because it's showing us that it's shared.
There we go. Now we see it.
It has like the stop share button. Okay, it looks exactly as it did before. Okay, technology. Story of now has to do with the specific ask we're making. So an important concept with this is that of a hard ask. So being extremely specific about what you're asking people to do, we often say, we need you to get involved. No, you don't need them to get involved. You need them to go to your website and give them your contact information, or you need them to go to Oizu room 528 at 6 p.m. next Tuesday, and being extremely specific about what you want people to be doing, to be getting involved with your hub, I think in this case, or campaign, and being really specific and having all of these parts is how our brains evolutionary have come to process information in terms of self, others, communities, and the present. So on that, and I'm just going to be sensitive to time, there's three parts of an effective story as well, in self, us, and now. And the idea is that all of you can go back and actually think about what your story of us is, what your story of self is, and what your story now is. And to help you do that, there's the framing of challenge, choice, and outcome. So people see or encounter challenges, they make a choice, and there can be an outcome. There's many ways to understand this. It can be from not caring to caring. It can be from feeling unable to make a difference in the world to feeling that you're part of a bigger movement that is accomplishing something important. In my case, the challenge was that I thought researching a UN program could help understand what solutions towards climate change could be. And I had the very different understanding that I don't think the UN was one of the primary drivers of success, but it was social movements and whether or not we're able to follow the lead of frontline communities who are resisting the fossil fuel and other extractive industries. This also applies to Southwest and now. So the strategic implications of this and how you actually use storytelling. Amanda.
Yeah, so there are many ways to use your story. One of them is in recruiting people for an action or to join your group for a particular campaign. So for example, last fall, I was working on a campaign called Climate 101, which essentially my job was to recruit people to go get arrested in Ottawa to protest the Kinder Morgan pipeline, which is kind of a big ask to go and up to a person and be like, do you want to go get arrested in Ottawa? They're going to be like, what? Why would I do that? So
unless if you're Kristen Fair, but yeah.
Yeah, some people get a high off of that, I guess. But for a lot of people, that can be like really scary, and they're not going to want to do it. So I was using storytelling a lot when I was recruiting people, trying to share my story of self, which is like my reasons for getting involved in the climate movement. And then the us, making that personal connection with whoever I'm talking to of what shared values do we have? What shared fears do we have? And shared visions for what we would like to see. And then creating that story of now, which really creates the sense of urgency. And that's where I feel like you can get someone from going to, yeah, I care, to, yeah, I'm willing to get arrested, because you create this, this is the moment, And in the case of that campaign, there was a lot of urgency because Trudeau was going to be making a decision within a matter of weeks after the date of that action. Another place you might want to use storytelling is at an action itself. So when you're giving a speech at a rally, instead of just giving a speech where you list off facts of everyone knows that the climate is warming. I mean, if you're coming to one of these rallies, so you want to, instead of just listing off facts and figures, use your story to connect with people and inspire them to, after the rally, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I actually want to join a group. I'm not going to just go to this rally and do nothing else. I'm going to join the group that organized the rally and get involved.
And I think the other, and you will use that to echo Amanda's point in one-on-ones and in recruitment. My favorite study was done on volunteers of the Obama campaign who returned from 2008 and 2012. And the number one reason why people came back was not that Mitt Romney was scary. It was that they had built meaningful relationships with the organizer in their area, and they wanted that relationship to continue. So it really, when we often ask ourselves, how do we get more people in the room and how do we get them coming back? And that all comes down to storytelling. And whether or not you've told your story, you've built that relationship, and in doing so inspired someone to return. And just as a final quick note, the other strategic importance of thing to understand with storytelling is that if you live in the global north or in a safe area and you are not a frontline community, your story can still mobilize people who are like you, but it becomes exceptionally important to also prioritize building relationships with frontline communities in your area, be it indigenous nations in your area or people affected by food insecurity in your area who have really important stories, and to give them the space to tell their stories and to be investing in their leadership as much as possible. And that, yes, I think that's what we're covering. Thank you. Sorry about the tech instability.
Awesome. So thank you, Ben and Amanda. We're going to move now after those ideas. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're working through it. So now we're going to move into Jason Davis, who is the director of the Climate Stories Project, an educational and artistic forum for sharing stories about personal and community responses to climate change. Jason is an accomplished environmental educator and musician, and is currently a doctoral student in the music at McGill University here in Montreal. With his jazz group Ear Sound, Jason combines the power of spoken personal narratives with improvised music and natural soundscapes. Jason has a master's degree in music from the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and a master's degree in interdisciplinary ecology from the University of Florida. So now passing it on to Jason.
Great. Can everybody see me okay?
Yep,
That's good.
loud and clear.
Great. So thanks everyone for giving me the chance to talk, and thanks for participating in this webinar. It was really great to hear the previous speakers talking about the use of storytelling and activism, and I'm really excited to follow up with them about some ways to do that. So just a little bit about my project. Is called Klima Stories project, and it started about 3 or 4 years ago, and I just started collecting stories about climate change, but really on a more personal level. So as we all know, there's a lot of information about climate change. There's graphs, there's charts, but what we really need to motivate people and to get people involved in the climate movement is stories about how climate change is affecting people today in the present and how people are responding to it. So I think the relevance for the climate hubs is Klima Stories project gives people an immediate way to share their stories and to hear other people's stories about how they're responding to climate change. So I'm going to share my screen. So can everybody see my screen?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. Now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is just a little brief introduction to the website. I have a featured story up just to give an example from Canada. I was up on the Côte Nord a few weeks ago, and I spoke with a park ranger named Guy Coté up there, who talked about some of the changes he's seen in the seasonal timing of flowers and some bigger storms they've been experiencing. If you go to the website, again, it's climastoriesproject.org. You can go to Klima Stories here, and there's many, many stories, including a quote from Marshall Gantz up there at the top. So I've collected stories from really around the world, a lot from the US, where I'm from, a lot from Canada, but other places too. There's a map of stories. So it's a Google map, and at this map, you can actually go to a particular story, and it's connected to either YouTube video or a SoundCloud file. And I also wanted just to share you guys, this is probably the most important page for now, is the Tell Your Story page. So say, for example, within your hub, you really want to get started with the storytelling work, and you already have a story about climate change in your community and how you're responding it through actions. This gives you some ways of planning out your story. Here are some boxes where you can fill them in with just written information, such as questions like, who are you and where do you live? What in your local environment or community is special to you? So that's really linking yourself and your community to the bigger issue of climate change. And really it gets at what does climate change mean for you, and how are you responding to it in your community and in your family or by yourself? So you could just contribute or just submit this written information, but we're encouraging people to actually record your story based on what you want to say. So it's a pretty simple process. You just record the story using your phone or using your computer or another recording device. And then you just upload the file down here where it says upload recorded Klima story. We also ask for a photograph if you can do that. That'll go to us, and we'll be able to take a look at the story or listen to the story, do a little bit of editing, and then post it. So it's just a really easy, quick way to get started sharing your stories right off the bat. Just so you guys know this, we also do educational workshops. We've worked in a bunch of different schools, high schools and colleges, and there's a lot of resources for actually sharing or setting up a workshop. So this, in the future, we're hoping to encourage people to actually do like a community forum about climate stories in their community. And so a lot of these files are good information on how to set up that in your community. As Matthew said, I'm also a musician and a composer, and so if you want to hear some of the pieces I've written and performed using Klima Stories, you can go to the Creative Projects page and listen to some of these pieces. And if you contribute a story, it may be actually turned into a piece of music, which is kind of fun. So that's pretty much all I had. I just wanted to keep it quick. But I look forward to hearing from people. And if you have any questions, you can go right to our contact site here and send me an email, and I'll get back to you right away. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us, and for Ben and Amanda as well, sharing your expertise with us. We'll do our best when we post this video to our YouTube channel to perhaps maybe re-record some of the audio at the beginning and include the slides that were missed. So we'll do our best to ensure that the recording is representative of what we would have liked you to see today. I'm going to give you just a 60-second rundown of kind of our Climate Hub campaign, and then I will invite you to ask questions. And if you have to jump off, being that it's 5:30 Eastern time, that is, then feel free to do so. So our Climate Hub campaign started about a month and a week ago on May 2nd with the public launch. And in the first 3 months, we're working with these 6 cities on your map: Vancouver, Calgary, Saskatoon, Toronto, Vaudreuil-Soulanges, and Montreal. The goal being to establish community hubs, establish a core of citizens that are willing to act together locally, focused on their municipal governments, and leveraging some of the resources that we've spoken about in previous webinars, including financing from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And the objective longer term, once these citizens get together and decide, okay, well, we're going to run a conference this month, or we're going to participate in a public consultation, or we're going to hold a movie screening about with Al Gore's new movie coming out this summer. There will be a number of cities across the country holding screenings and bringing their neighbors together to discuss the issues and to say, what can we do at a local level, whether it's gardening, whether it's zero waste, or whether it's active transportation infrastructure. There are really dozens and dozens of solutions. And one of the things we'd like to do in the next 12 months is benchmark these hub cities against each other. So each hub would report back metrics to the head office here of Climate Reality Project, and we'd be able to say, okay, what is London, Ontario doing that is interesting compared with Vancouver? Maybe I know Edmonton is doing amazing things with respect to waste management, and Montreal has done amazing things with respect to shared bicycles, among the leaders in the world in that respect. So watch for that to come. We're in conversations with ICLE Canada in addition to Quest Canada, and we've had a number of other participants share on our previous webinars. So looking forward to having you embark on this adventure with us. And in August, we'll be announcing the next 6 cities where we'll be focusing our efforts to assist hubs establish themselves and focus their priorities around local municipal action. So with that, I will cut the sharing and open it up to questions, and I will be moderating those questions. So let me know in the Q&A section, either for questions either for Ben or Amanda or Jason. Right. And we've got one here. Louise asks, I'm a teacher and this topic is central to me. Do you have any particular strategies for children and their parents when it comes to storytelling? Do you have a transcript of your presentation? The questions to Ben and Amanda. So it would be great maybe to have a transcript. There will certainly be notes circulated of the presentation. So, but I'll let Ben and Amanda answer that first question about particular strategies for children and their parents.
Sure. So the best example that I can think of is actually the story of my friend Katie. And I was going to show it in this, we just were like short on time, so I didn't. So she struggled for a very long time to convince her dad that climate change was real. And her story involves, and she's given me permission to share it, around how she one day just snapped and said to her dad, I'm afraid to have kids. And he freaked out when that happened. And I think, at least with kids, what I've seen is like stories of fear to their parents are very, I mean, it's a hard place to go. It's a very deep place to go, but there's an instinct that a lot of parents have to protect their kids. And when that gets activated, when those buttons get pushed, it affects people in a really strong way.
Very cool. Do you want to jump in on that, Jason, at all, or Amanda?
I mean, I guess how I would relate to that is just working with students myself in my educational workshops we've done with Klima Stories project. And I've just found it a really great way to get students interested in climate change because it's very much based on personal experience in their communities. And Maybe some students love science, maybe some don't, and I think especially for reaching those students who are not necessarily right away geared into the science, it's a great entry into studying and understanding climate change.
Cool. Alicia or even Charlotte, do you have anything to add on that? If you do, feel free to jump in. I can just, in the meantime, answer Chip's question, which is how do the next 6 cities get chosen? And essentially, there are a number of variables, and the biggest one is interest. So we've been solicited by a number of cities to say, we're basically citizens, to say, listen, we've got the right mix of need in our city and desire to take action, and really that's where we're going, where the ground is fertile, and we think by establishing hubs in those cities first, we'll be able to gain momentum and hopefully move to a situation in which, in the not too distant future, we can start saying, okay, everybody who's in the engineering field, in the Vancouver hub, whoever's interested in engineering, can you connect with the engineers in the Montreal hub and in the Calgary hub and in the Halifax hub? And can those different people groups come together and say, okay, we've developed recommendations for our municipal government. Can we now also develop recommendations for our provincial or possibly federal governments from the engineering community? So, yeah, so another 6 will get chosen a few months later. Yes, Chip. Yeah, we'll be reaching out to the cities that are on the kind of the short list very, very soon, and the folks who've already been in touch with us on a regular basis are aware of our interest in collaborating with them. But if you're interested, please reach out to us. We'd love to consider you. The next wave is in August. The following wave will be in December. So roughly 20 hubs active by the end of the year. Right. So we have an anonymous viewer asking, competition between cities sounds great to incite action. How do you feel about competition on an individual level? Is it effective? And I would say that yes, it is, certainly. And it can, I think the more we can pull people's attention, maybe away from other frivolous competitions that exist in the world and towards competition towards improving, the quality of our life on this planet. I think it's a positive thing, and I would suggest taking a look at getmyco, M-Y-K-O I believe it's .com, but it's an application that allows citizens to benchmark their sustainable progress against each other. So I can post that in the chat right now so that you can see that. And I'm sure there are other examples too, and if you have any, please feel free to post them in the chat as well. So getmyco.com. Great. And Stephen asks, thanks for the webinar. It's a skill I'm interested in learning. Are there any additional books or online resources, for example, Coursera, you'd recommend to learn more about techniques of effective storytelling? And I'll pass that off to Amanda and Ben. And Jason, certainly.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the workbooks on this, and there's sheets that I can also send to you, Matt. There was no way to go through the entire worksheets, as you know, in 30 minutes. And I can send the slides, and I'm happy doing that. Great,
thanks so much. I don't know how you feel about. Anyways, yes. So bottom line, I'll talk with the Institute for Change Leadership, for which Ben is coordinating a number of their activities or all of their activities, and find out from them which of their resources they like to share strictly with the people who've taken the course. And maybe Ben, you can mention, do you have one coming up in the Toronto area or elsewhere in Canada?
Yeah, so we have one coming up June 17th and 18th. So that's, if you go to changeleaders.ca, you would see it. I'm actually, I'm happy sharing the public narrative sheet. Like, it's not copyright or anything. It's for people to use. I mean, like, I would flag that people's story becomes better by practice and actually being coached. But I think anyone can get somewhere better just by going through the worksheets, and I'm happy to share them to anyone.
Terrific. Okay. Well, we're about 10 minutes past the time, so I'll invite Alicia to wrap things up, unless there are some questions.
Awesome. So thank you all. for being with us, and thanks to the speakers as well, Amanda, Ben, and Jason. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulties, and there already are some links right now on the chat page, and we'll also figure out another way we'll get the slides available following the webinar. We hope that this has been useful, and we hope that it's provided resources and inspiration to get active in your communities. And we invite you to sign up and join a hub at climatehub.ca if you haven't already. And again, more hubs will be available in the following months, but climatehub.ca is the place to go. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good afternoon.